It's Aaron Cantu coming in once again for Cantu's Corner, where we talk about hot topics, upcoming fights, negotiations, all that in the world of boxing. And tonight, I'm gonna update you on the current situation with Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz and where this fight is as far as, is it gonna take place in Saudi Arabia after all?
It's the champ! Where'd you find this?
So, as some of you know, Matchroom Boxing, Eddie Hearn promoter, came out during a press conference to say that the Anthony Joshua-Andy Ruiz fight was officially announced for December 7th in Diriyah, Saudi Arabia. However, neither fighter was at the press conference. Since then, Andy Ruiz has got on his Instagram Live and he has stated that he's not protected in Saudi Arabia. The fight is absolutely not going to happen in Saudi Arabia. The fight will take place in America. He's going to have the rematch in America. So some conflicting stories, some conflicting takes on this whole fight happening in Saudi Arabia. And I just want to give my input on where we're at and update the fans here who've been watching my videos on the negotiations. Andy Ruiz, his team feels that he's not protected from many levels if the fight is to take place in Saudi Arabia. For one, being in the country of Saudi Arabia is a dangerous situation. I'm gonna read a quote from rival promoter of Matchroom Boxing, Frank Warren, what he said about Ruiz and his team traveling to Saudi Arabia to fight in accordance to what the US Department has been saying. The bottom line is the US State Department advises its citizens not to go to Saudi Arabia for many reasons. The killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, human rights issues. They've got a long paragraph on torture, cruel and inhumane treatment, women's rights, and it talks about the risks of going to airports where terrorists may attack. That's all on their official website. His own government is telling him his life could be in danger. All this nonsense about having his titles taken away from him, that's nonsense. You can be sued for breach of contract, and he may have a point there, but it's not an easy case, that's for sure. He, meaning Ruiz, has a very, very strong position for not traveling. And that's a promoter, an independent promoter to this whole situation, Frank Warren, giving his take on the whole situation. And it is cause to pause for Team Ruiz. Now that's one credible reason why Ruiz feels that he shouldn't be fighting and doesn't want to fight in Saudi Arabia. The other one is the commission. Manny Robles just did an interview on The Real Fight Girl, my friend Cynthia Conti's YouTube channel, with one of her correspondents, and he basically was asked a question about where this negotiation was, and Manny Robles said that there is a question about the commission who will oversee the fight, and specifically the anti-dope testing. Who's going to be administering and proctoring those drug tests? That's a huge standpoint for them, because we saw what happened with Dillian Whyte. For those who don't know about Dillian Whyte, about a month ago, Dillian Whyte tested positive for a banned substance before his fight against Oscar Rivas. However, Matchroom Boxing, who represents Dillian Whyte, is the same promotional company that represents Anthony Joshua, did not notify Oscar Rivas, Dillian Whyte's opponent, nor the WBC that Dillian Whyte failed a drug test. They had a secret hearing with the British Boxing Board of Control, I believe the day of or the day before the fight, and he was cleared to fight by the British Boxing Board of Control. So, with that whole sketchy situation happening, and we're still over here waiting for the B sample of Dillian Whyte, nobody knows when that's coming. It's just a non-transparent situation, and Team Ruiz feels that it's too risky to be fighting in the UK And with questions about which commission will be proctoring the fight in Saudi Arabia, Ruiz feels that the fight should be coming back to the States, go back to the scene of the crime, New York. So that's where we're at with this whole thing. I just want to read one more quote to give some perspective. And that quote comes from Brendan Schaub from Showtime Sports on his show Below the Belt. He says, Andy Ruiz didn't want to fight in England. Obviously, it was a negotiation tactic, but if you think the Saudi Arabian judges are going to be on your side, you're crazy. Eddie Hearn, promoter of Matchroom Boxing, is literally going to pick all three of them. And that was Brendan Schaub's take on the Ruiz-Joshua rematch taking place in Saudi Arabia. So there's definite cause to pause with this fight. And like I said in past videos, this sounds like a cash out from Matchroom and Eddie Hearn, being that Saudi Arabia is putting up a lot of money to make this fight happen. But there's a lot of sketchy gray areas when it comes to the commission administering the fight, the travel, you know, being in a foreign country where, you know, it's advised by your own country not to go because it's not that safe. I'm not giving my opinion on this. This is just what the input that's been coming out about the negotiations. And then not to mention the fact that if the fight does take place in Saudi Arabia, a large portion of the viewers of the fight from America, from Mexico, would have to watch the fight at an awkward time if the fight takes place in Saudi Arabia. From my understanding, they're not going to accommodate the actual live time of the fight to the people in the States. So you got to think you're going to lose a little bit of viewership too when it comes to that. So Ruiz's team is leveraging everything they can get. And I've been watching a lot of videos on YouTube. There's been plenty of professional players, professional NFL players, basketball players, NBA players who get out of their contracts all the time. So these people are saying, oh, he signed a contract, he can't, he has to honor it, otherwise they're gonna sue him, blah, blah, blah. Well, that can be argued against, because we see Ezekiel Elliott, we see Le'Veon Bell, we see these NFL running backs who want to renegotiate their contracts when they're still on contract with a team. You see them hold out, you see them not play for a whole season until they demand a trade. Like, it's not out of the question to get out of a contract. So this notion that, oh, Ruiz already signed a contract so he can't do anything that stipulates otherwise, that is a falsehood in my opinion. And we don't really know what was signed, but Al Heyman is one of the best businessmen out there. You best believe he's working round the clock to see what he can do for Team Ruiz and getting this fight back to America. But that's all we have for today on Cantu's Corner. Make sure you hit the like button on this video and subscribe to our channel. We'll be coming at you with some more content this week. Stay tuned.